Inside Gaming is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Protect your online privacy today at expressvpn.com/inside. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Inside Gaming podcast. We talk all about video games here, and we have quite the big week coming up, everybody. It's Next Gen Eve over here at Inside Gaming because the Xbox Series X, the S, and the PS5 all come out next week. Who's excited? Yeah, it's this only comes around. This is better than the Olympics because this is like every 7 or 8 years. So I'm stoked.
And it doesn't bankrupt poor communities.
That's right. You don't have to bulldoze any favelas to do this. It's great.
Well, Console Santa is coming, and I'm ready. I'm very excited.
The reviews for the Series X and the S just came out this week. An embargo clearly lifted on Thursday. Yep. And I read a lot of these. The consensus, if you want to call it that, is I think what we all suspected. It's an impressive little PC they built, especially for $500. Things like Quick Resume are really cool. However, there's not a lot of new stuff to play on it just yet.
So yeah,
again, what you thought?
I had it for a few days. I borrowed Alana's, so I guess thank you to Microsoft indirectly, and it's cool. Also, do we not do intros anymore?
I'm just waiting.
I've been waiting. Intros. I'm Brian, your host.
I'm Connor. I was just talking. I mean, you know that.
Hey, it's me, Evan. I'm too polite to interrupt Brian to say, hey, we got to do this really cool intro thing.
I like that. I like ruling by fear on this podcast.
Actually, that's
incompetence and fear.
Yeah.
Let's just go. Let's just record it.
Let's go.
We can do this.
I did like it. It's like mid-bite and Pop-Tart, and you're like,
yeah,
the Inside Gaming podcast is here.
I thought we were just doing the really cool Kojima late title card thing. So I was like,
oh, that's good. Yeah, 6 hours into the game.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
I might be due for Death Stranding replay, depending on how much that's.
That makes me want to play it now. Yeah,
it's good. It's divisive. Anyway, yeah, I had the Xbox since Friday. As I said to Alana when I dropped it off, I was like, weird week to try and like focus on a game console.
Yes.
And then I apologize that she was stuck in this god awful country. But yeah, Quick Resume is awesome. It's super quick and fast. I said quack. And yeah, tech wise, it's very impressive. But oh man, can you just feel Halo Infinite's absence? It is palpable. It is it is like a seat for Elijah. It is just there. And you can't ignore it because honestly, like all I played were games that I have on PC and Xbox One S, and they look good. But I was like, I don't want to be playing these right now.
Right. If there's not a brand new shiny thing to play on it, it just kind of feels like you bought like I don't know. It's like back when I would buy like a new 3DS and I really didn't need one, and then I would open it up and it's like, well, these are games I already have.
And you're like, well, I guess I just have this thing now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I spent a lot of money on.
I feel like PS5 is in like a way better position with Miles Morales because as was pointed out to me, you can play it on the PS4. It's not technically a PS5 exclusive, but it's new. So they can put it on shelves and say the best way to play this is on the PS5. Right. And you've got Godfall launching and you've got Demon Souls remake and I just feel like and you've got like those haptic feedback triggers and like bug snacks and the Pathless is coming, if not day one, very soon. And I'm just like, damn, more than ever, I feel solid in my choice to probably not get an Xbox.
I think just Miles Morales and Demon Souls are just enough to give you just enough of a reason to buy if you were on the fence about getting a PS5 at launch. That might tip you over. It's kind of the same thing as Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild. You could play it on the Wii U. It was fine. But yeah, you could have, and then that combined with like the form factor and the portability of the Switch, I think provided just enough impetus to, and the fact that nobody had a Wii U also helped them out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, just switching it in and out of the dock was enough to keep me entertained for 3
weeks. Exactly.
I know there's a lot of NBA kind of like red tape But do you think this is that kind of situation where people have games that they're just because we didn't get an Xbox from Microsoft. I'm not sure how much we can even talk about how we have access to an Xbox Series X.
No, I mean,
I feel like we just outed her.
Yeah.
Well, no, the 5th is the embargo.
Okay.
I mean, she's been streaming
it's
on it. It's out. It's out there.
So
that's what I was told, basically.
So yeah, and I think that we know that there are people reviewing Spider-Man. Like I can tell if you're on Twitter and stuff, you can see people talking around that kind of stuff without breaking their embargoes and things. But for Xbox, I think where the launch exclusives were like Tetris Effect, the new version of it, Scorn, and there was one other game that I can't remember. But I think
the Medium was pushed back to the Medium was of December.
Yep. Right. So the Medium was pushed. But there's also games that are coming out like within a couple of months, The Ascent and, obviously Assassin's Creed. And I feel like Call of Duty and those games should be coming around the bend for like review code pretty shortly here because it's only 2 weeks away from new consoles. Right. So
Valhalla's out next week.
Yeah.
Black Ops Cold War is out next week.
But they're all multi-plat.
They are multi-plat, but at least it would be something new for you to test and play on the.
Yes,
that's a good point. That's a good
right?
point.
Yes.
But like, there's just something different about being a like
Totally.
not console exclusive, but company exclusive, first party. That I don't know. I just feel like I feel like PlayStation has this in the bag. Like, and Xbox. Well, for launch, I should say. I think this will be a different conversation in a year, in 2 years, when you've got all the Obsidian titles and you've got Bethesda titles coming to Xbox and like all that really neat stuff that's in the works. But at launch, I can't see any reason to spend $500 on an Xbox Series X.
No, I think it's cool. And I think if you're an enthusiast and you just want to have kind of the latest and greatest, I can see that kind of, but you could, if you're a super enthusiast, you would have a PC, I would think.
Sure.
So
yeah. That's also fueling my opinion.
Yeah, it does fall into a weird kind of gray area. I do agree that like a year from now, it's a different story with Halo Infinite and a lot of other things. 2 years from now, I think it's a different story. But as of next week, I think the PS5 has made a much more compelling case that should be the one you buy.
Yeah.
Just because you can play all the multi-flats and you get at least two, I think, that most people would be interested in, or that a lot in Miles Morales and Demon Souls.
Right. And I think there's some really great indie titles that they've focused on to have coming out that are like available on PC as well, but they were smart enough to get console exclusivity.
There's also something like 8 new Xbox Studio exclusive studios now. They're all like Double Fines and all of those other companies.
It's a good investment.
Yeah. But just not.
It's a good investment.
Not quick enough.
There's nothing exciting. Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know if you wanted to change this.
I was just going to say it's not exciting to have like the knowledge that something is going to be good down the line doesn't make me have a better time with it today.
Yeah, totally. Right. But I think it's also interesting to bring up launch, and I don't know how much you want to pivot or even discuss this just yet. But at launch, I don't know who's going to be able to get consoles, right? Like it's just we just got that announcement today about PS5s are now only right. That like on launch day you cannot go to a retail store and get a PS5 unless you've already got that pre-order and set up an appointment or whatever. So it's interesting because you might not have the choice to buy a PS5 at launch. Who knows? Even when that box
you might have to wait a few days. Yeah. I wonder if that's a response too to the Microsoft GameStop partnership. I don't know. It feels like they've gotten a little cozier, and maybe Sony's pulling back a little. I don't know. That's kind of conspiratorial
like that conspiracy
thinking.
theory.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't do conspiracies on a podcast, where can you do them?
Seriously, yeah. And I do want to talk about Hollow Earth.
Also chemtrails. Have you guys been keeping up with the latest?
Yes.
Dude, I know somebody that worked on a chemtrails documentary, and like he was just purely on it in a professional technical aspect.
Like didn't buy into it. It was just a job.
But I was talking to him. He's like, they make some really interesting points. I was
no.
I don't want to get into this.
I feel like everybody should be required to take like media literacy and critical thinking classes.
Well, I don't think anyone is equipped to be an assistant editor and pour through hours and hours of footage, because when you do that, you think you're an expert at whatever you're watching.
Yes.
just
because you watched it.
Yeah, you're just like, I know all about this on-set recording technology that I'm making a guide for.
Another thing I noticed with the Series X, the quick resume, seems really cool. They
So
have
cool.
taken it down. They've removed it for some titles just recently, apparently because of a bug that they're fixing. They clearly want to get it ready for launch day. But one reviewer said like during previews they were like juggling between a dozen games,
half dozen games, I think.
Half dozen,
8 to 12
sorry,
second
yeah.
load time.
Just nuts though. I mean that's amazing.
I didn't get it quite to that many, but like bigger games definitely rock it a little bit more. So I think it's the optimized games for the series of consoles.
Yeah.
So like, but it was working for me yesterday on Gears 5.
Okay.
Like I jumped between Gears 5 and Ori and the Will of the Wisps like 6 times. It was just like boop, 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 boop. It was super quick. It doesn't work for a handful of games. No Man's Sky totally resets after you close out of it and go back in.
Okay.
I guess it operates server side so much that I can't save it all on the RAM. But what the hell? Sorry, they're weed whacking. But yeah, quick resume rules. It works after you restart too.
Oh,
you
wow.
can even unplug the console.
That's cool.
Oh yeah, that's the one that tripped me
Yeah,
out.
it's like a magic trick.
Yeah.
It's so
That's amazing.
I gotta close this. Yeah, it's super rad. And the smaller games like indie titles is where you're gonna really see it shine. You can just jump right into it.
I feel like that's I don't know, as someone with undiagnosed ADHD, I feel like that's like something I would absolutely use. And that's the thing about the Series X. Like I think there's like so much potential there. I think it's got a lot of like I don't know. I think the features like that are really cool. It clearly seems like the most powerful console. And I know Microsoft wishes this too. I wish Halo Infinite had launched with it.
You can really tell that was the plan. They feel completely unequipped for the end of 2020 holiday. All of it. They feel like you get it, you unbox it, you plug it in, you go, why do I have this? Why did I clear 6 square feet on my TV stand to make space
play
for
Game
this?
Pass?
To play Game Pass, yeah. It's like, well, I guess I'll just play games I don't want to play since I already beat them.
It feels like, to use a sports analogy, it feels like their starting quarterback went down and they just had nobody else on the bench. It's like, well, I guess we'll use the kicker then because we've got no other. We're just going to hike it to the running back every down, I guess, because we got no other plan.
Like when the shortstop starts pitching in the bottom of the 13th inning.
Right, because you burned through your rotation because it's the playoffs and you've got
you used
nobody
6
left.
pitchers in the first 3 innings.
Yeah, and the shortstop like immediately tears his rotator cuff after the second
but he has to stay on the mound for the rest of the game.
I feel like even if it wasn't Halo, there could have been something like last gen. We got Rome at least, or Rise. Sorry, it was called
Rise. Son of Rome.
Son of Rome. Yeah. And I mean, PS4 had what?
Infamous Second Son.
It was at launch.
And Resogun.
I want to say something kill. Gosh, what is the
Killzone?
Sorry. Gosh.
Yeah.
They didn't. The PS4 didn't have an incredible launch lineup last time. There was.
Yeah, I remember I beat Infamous Second Son and I was like, or I wasn't even done with it. I think I just played so much. I was like, what else can I do? And then I played Resogun for 2 hours.
Right.
Yeah, and everybody was playing Resogun. Yeah, which is,
incredible game.
But also like not exactly the benchmark of next generation hardware, right? So they could have made anything really. Like if they just
kind of like the Tetris effect connected of the next gen upgrades.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Not cool.
Well, I mean, at least Resogun hadn't already existed before.
Yes, but Tetris Effect Connected Game of the Year.
You heard it here. We're calling it now.
Yeah,
I'll be interested to see what sales are like because on one hand, we're in the middle of a pandemic. I think lots of people are still. I mean, we're all still at home, which I think leaves more time for games. We've seen a lot more. We've seen games like Animal Crossing just sort of do crazy business. On the other hand, I feel like the economy being what it is and layoffs and all this other stuff, I don't know if it's the time for a lot of people to just break out $500, $600 when all's said and done or more than that for a new console. So
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, and I feel like in times like these, people kind of start saving, and I'm just wondering what'll be the, if that'll affect it at all.
I think so. I do think so, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, personally, I feel like I'm going to hold off. Like, I don't know. I'm not going to buy either right out of the gun. I would lean toward PS5 to play Miles Morales and the Demon Souls remake, but it's not, to me, that's not like I've got to go out and get one on launch day to play either of those.
No, yeah. That's why I got my Oculus. I'm like, I got something new, and I got it on day one.
You just kicked the bug a different way. Yeah.
And that's definitely a different experience, even if you are playing similar games.
Right. That was my whole reasoning. I was like, out of all the things I could buy, this offers a totally different. Right. It's singular. Like it's completely separate. Well, not separate. Yeah, it's completely separate from playing a game on my PC. And that's like to a lesser extent how I feel about the PS5 and the Xbox. I'm like, the Xbox is like an incremental improvement in computing and performance, and little features and big features like quick resume. And I'm like, but like the PS5 offers this experience that you can't get on another machine, supposedly. Now we're going to see if devs actually come through on that. My friend is a dev, and we were talking about the triggers last night, about like to what extent are those going to be used outside of a first party application. So, but it feels like right now, and I think Wired wrote about this, or maybe it was the Washington Post, but like Sony is promising an experience that
yes
which like Nintendo does that better than anyone. They don't care about hardware.
No. Oh, like how powerful it is? Absolutely not. No.
I mean, obviously Sony is like definitely got the teraflops to back up enough of what it's saying, but like Nintendo is like, well, we have a Rube Goldberg machine attached to a potato clock.
Yeah, you need cardboard and string to operate this console, but you get to do it in a room with your family all gathered around, so it's going to be great.
I mean, this Mario game runs on chalk.
Sony does seem to be edging just a little bit toward that in favor of slightly less power, although still very powerful. But yeah, they've clearly gone in on the controller. Everybody talks about the haptics on the controller and the triggers, the rumble feed, the HD rumble feedback, or whatever the sort of variations on the rumbles now. And also the UI completely redesigned. Whereas like the Series X, the UI is basically the same thing as the Xbox One. The controller's basically the same thing as the Xbox One. Now, there have been tweaks and there have been some, some improvements, but
unless they're side by side, you can't really tell.
Yeah, but they're going on
the
power.
Controller specifically.
They're going on, this is the best way to play video games, which is fine, but you need video games to play them on.
Right. I have a question, sort of a thought experiment, but do we think there's going to be a scandal, like a red ring of death or a Joy-Con drift, or like is the haptic feedback motor gonna like get this whirring clicking sound after 2 weeks of use? Like what's gonna happen? That's a good question,
especially with controllers, because people abuse those things.
Yeah, and I feel like Xbox might be playing a little safe. Like Sony's got so much like doodads and bits and bobs and new stuff. It's just like there's a lot of moving parts, guys.
I think the narrative around Sony stuff is generally they introduce new features, like think about like 6-axis, right, or whatever, and like you said earlier, Connor, they kind of use it from their first party titles, but then it kind of just disappears forever.
And no one else uses them.
Like the touchpad and the shaking that we saw in Last of Us 2 after it disappeared for 4 years.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you
strum to play guitar. Okay. Whee!
And then it kind of comes back. It comes back a few years later when the next iteration of that first party game comes out, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot this could do this, or this had that like 6-axis feature or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't really like it then, and it's still kind of not okay now. But I think DualSense, it seems like it's a lot better, and I'm really excited about that like way to change the way that we play games. And changing controllers, I think, is like one of the biggest things you could do to differentiate yourself.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, the Joy-Cons, like I didn't know how many people play with them separate, broken out, just like this on the couch.
Right.
Like you can't even tell they're playing a game. I don't know. There's stuff with Sony in the past specifically that's been less red ring of death and more just kind of like grating. And then it just kind of compounds as the life cycle of the console goes on, and maybe they fix it in other iterations, like the vents, the noise of the vents in the PS4.
Right.
That's kind of become something that like is annoying and frustrating, has kind of just become something we just put up with, and it gets really hot. And then you've got like download speeds on the PS4 over Wi-Fi or even wired when you're running any other game, terrible. And it's just something that we just kind of accept. And so I'm like wondering like if there's like something that no one could have accounted for until it's in the hands of like hundreds, thousands, millions of users.
That's a good point. I mean, up to this point, and maybe I'm forgetting something, but it never feels like Sony has had a catastrophic hardware issue like the red ring of death. I know there was the yellow light of death on the PS3, but that was comparatively very minor. And even like Joy-Con drift with the Switch, I feel like was much bigger than anything Sony has had.
Yeah, I was going to say both companies are usually pretty solid on their hardware, at least with their controllers and stuff. I don't think there's ever really been an issue. Sony generally has a problem more on the software end, getting hacked. Or like, way we set up your profiles means you can never change your profile name, like stuff like that.
Oh, the best. Yes, the best.
So, I mean, that's stuff we won't even know for a little ways out. But yeah, I think with the rush nature of like the warehouse manufacturing and the production because of COVID and things, there's bound to be some kind of hiccups or hurdles. And we always had heard that rumor about like 50% failure rate on the system on chip process for PlayStation.
Right. Yeah. That's scary. Yeah. Now that's
like
worrisome.
The way you huge heat sink gonna melt the whole thing.
Well, the way you test those chips, I'm not as worried about it because the way you test those chips is if you get a bad batch, it just gets thrown out. You're not going to get one of those like failed chips per se.
Yeah,
because they bake lately like on these huge sheets essentially. But yeah, but what else could be wrong? If that's happening, right? That just means they're losing a lot of money trying to manufacture these chips and get them into these consoles. It doesn't necessarily mean that the consoles will be broken when you get them.
Right, that there's some flaw embedded in them. Yeah. Side note about the Joy-Cons, I had 2 sets of Joy-Cons that both had drift on the Switch, and I sent them back. I finally sent them to Nintendo, like, please fix these. Because my kids had just abused them asleep, and they were just like drifting terribly. I sent them to Nintendo. I didn't hear back for 3 weeks, and then they just sent me 2 new sets of Joy-Cons.
Oh, that's great.
We don't want. Yeah, it was fine, but it was funny. It was just like, yeah, you know what? We're not gonna buy. Here you go.
I wish that happened all the time. I bought my Switch used off a guy in a Burger King parking lot. I mean, we had arranged to meet beforehand. It wasn't happenstance.
It wasn't
the Whopper Junior sack of Whoppers. But yeah,
this young man has Switches for sale.
Was he dressed up like
you want
a
Switch?
King? Was he dressed up like Snake King?
He was the Burger King with a big trench coat, which at first I was like, oh, okay. I don't know if this is I don't like this. I do like the switch of like responsibility on who fucks up Nintendo controllers, because now it's all like drift and like user error, but before it was just people just launching those Wiimotes into TVs and just slamming them onto coffee tables and shit, playing Wii bowling. I mean, my pop-up just like, he fucking rocked back like he was holding a 12-pound ball and then just like boom, slammed it into the side of the coffee table.
Yes.
It was awesome. And Nintendo at that point is like, buy more because you broke that.
Yep.
My brother's friend did this like 10 years after everyone else stopped and launched a Wii remote into the basement TV like a year or two ago.
You should have taken a picture. That would have gone viral.
I think my brother did send me one, but I was just like, when they told me what happened, I was like, in 2018?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I really got into those videos when they started like taking a turn where it's like, oh, here's like another Wiimote catastrophe. And it's like somebody about to wind up for bowling, like you said, but then like a cat knocks something off a shelf and it takes them out instead. Like just multi-layered.
Have you seen, this is like a different clip and this is a tangent we don't need to go down, but like, the Richie's whatever plank, the VR experience where you're like walking on a plank over like a very high rise building. It's very scary. This guy's brain was so into the VR. He was walking towards the TV and they're like, you did it. And he jumps like Assassin's Creed style straight into the TV. And it's like a huge flat screen. And he jumps from maybe 3 feet away. He just launches into its spread eagle. And they're like, ah! I'll see if I can find that. Send it to y'all.
That's pretty good.
That's funny. The other thing that was a big story earlier this week, the Series S, someone got an early unit basically in Canada. They got it shipped early to them by a retailer, and they posted a picture of the box on Reddit. And people were asking him questions. They got to karma farm off this for a good solid day. And of course, we already knew the Series S only has 512 gigs of storage. And someone asked, could you boot it up and tell us how much storage there actually is? Once the operating system takes its cut and all that. They said it has 364 gigs of storage, which is not a lot.
It's a nice round number
for an all-digital console.
That's
rough.
That's so bad.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm already kind of shuffling a lot with my PS4, launch PS4. Anytime I buy a new game, I kind of already have to shuffle it. So for me, this wasn't as big of a deal. I think for some people, it's just not going to matter, especially if you're on a budget or you're like 12 years old and you just have all the time in the world to be like managing your game collection and stuff. And even if you don't, I think there's some people who just are like, I'll save $200 just to have this minor annoyance all the time. But if you want to play more than and I think a lot of people keep using Call of Duty as the benchmark. Not everybody plays Call of Duty, and people who do usually are playing it for a long time, or they're going to play through the campaign and delete it or whatever. So I don't know, to an extent, I'm like, that really sucks. There's not a lot of room to put more than 2 games on there, really. I mean, with game sizes getting more than 100 gigs, there's not more than room for 2 or 3 games. And if you don't count your growing indie collection that you want to switch between or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, for some people, that's really, really good. For the people that it sucks for, it really, really sucks. Digital only, obviously.
I think for the people that it really affects, for me, there's a handful of games that I like to have on, which I'm on PC now, so it's a little easier, but I like to be able to just jump into Hitman 2 once every few months, and I don't want to have to reinstall it every time.
Yes,
so when I was on PS4, that also included the installs for Hitman 1 because it has the levels for that. And so it's this huge file, and then The Witcher 3 by the end, enormous. I mean, don't even get me started on Red Dead 2. So I feel like if you're the person that is going to have those, investing in one of those Seagate cards is a must. Which I do think there should be more onboard storage, but I will say the connection speed between those Seagates and the internals of the console is ridiculous. I copied it.
Have you played it?
So I moved a couple games because Alana's Xbox, she had one of those on there, and I filled up the hard drive on the Xbox. And so she already had games on there, and then I installed a bunch more. So it holds a lot. But when it came time to move it, it copies it's extremely fast. It might be gigabit or approaching that. It just moves data. So
it goes right to the bus. It's not just an SSD. It's a special, and not even proprietary, because this is being built around in other different types of machines and stuff. And camera tech kind of tries to do this too, to really expensive cameras, so that you don't get any delays in your recording or whatever. But that thing is special. That's why it's expensive. It's
symbiotic.
Yes.
Completely two-way. Yeah. The data just goes
it's
right
the
to
Venom
it,
suit over your Xbox.
So it's not quite the same compromise as plugging in a Western Digital passport to your PS4.
Right.
You'll have good performance off of it, but even still, $220 is so much on top of it.
You've almost doubled your Series
You're paying
S's
more than
price.
you would for the Series X.
I mean, how do you feel about the Series S just kind of being a Game Pass machine, though, or maybe even an xCloud machine, or it's a box that someone can put in their house
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it has kids console written all over it. You put that in the game room, and you put xCloud on it and Game Pass, and then and let everybody leave you alone.
This is the dad perspective.
It is. It is. Who do you think buys these consoles? Yeah,
money doesn't grow on trees.
Oh, no,
get a job.
No, Dad. Yeah, it's a living room console. I might get one if it comes down to it.
I think it's a very cheap entry point into the next generation, and that's what it's for. And if little Timmy has to wait and install and reinstall a bunch of games, well, that'll keep him busy.
I think it's kind of fun, honest. I
enjoy
enjoy
watch download bars.
But for people who are affected by really slow internet speeds, then it really it's not an option. I'd say. I think it's not an option for you, really. And
right.
you'd probably be hesitant about buying an all digital console anyway, if that's your situation.
That's right. So. Yeah, if you had bad internet, I don't know if that would be your first choice to begin with. Also, I kind of agree. I find watching download bars oddly calming, and I like doing it.
Well, that part, but just being like, oh, which one of these games has to go?
Yeah,
which of these?
Who gets to live and who dies?
Or like, just kind of having a real honest moment with yourself of like, am I actually going to finish that last boss in Bloodborne or not? Like, this new game is out now. What should I do?
Yeah.
I guess it should be also noticed that it's a similar situation is brewing with the PS5, where people are claiming it's only going to have something like 825 gigs instead of the full terabyte. It's obviously 800 it's much more than 364, but maybe people will be bummed about that too, because that's like more of like the flagship title. It's not even like a reduced version or like a slim, like Xbox Series X Slim or something. But
800 is bad too.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, even
bad,
a terabyte nowadays is cutting it close, right?
If you exactly.
Yeah, if you're buying like a big game a month or something, if some people only buy a couple a year, but we can't get as far as we used to. But the trade-off is we have these really, really fast hard drives now to do really, really cool things with these consoles.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I just want to know, does PS5 have a similar expansion option available?
Yes. So their situation is different in that I think you actually have to remove like a backplate or something. But Mark Cerny talked about this in the road to PS4, that they're basically, it's like a special type of SSD that you'll have to get. But he said in that talk, I believe, that they're working with distributors like the Seagates of the world to try and make that you could go out and basically buy any version of this as long as
third-party stuff.
Yeah, third-party stuff, as long as it had the footprint and then hit the benchmarks was their thing. So potentially wouldn't be as expensive to expand your storage in your PS5 as we know right now.
I will say, to Connor's earlier point about just sort of the speed and the quick loading times, I like that too, and it will dissuade me sometimes from playing a game if I think about I don't want to sit through having to like re-download this or booting it up, or I'll just play this instead. I like just sort of picking it up and going within sort of like 30 seconds. That's, to me, that's sometimes that can be a deal breaker. I know that sounds super lazy, but it is.
Especially if it's a multiplayer game and it's like, hey, do you want to play Battlefield tonight? And it's like, yes. And I remember on my launch PS4 at my old apartment where I didn't have a wired connection in my room, was like, oh, there's a 28 gig update. I can't play this tonight.
Yeah. Oh, that is.
I just can't.
I think one benefit to the Series S, the aspect that we hadn't really talked about yet, is that you can get an external like drive, like a regular external drive, and store your games on there and then move them over to the hard drive. You can swap things out that way. But if you want that performance and that speed, the load times, frame rate, processing, all that, you're going to want to play off the SSD, obviously.
Yeah.
It's got to be on the mothership.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that does kind of chip away at the promise of the console.
Right.
Over PC, which is your all-in-one machine. You don't have to worry about logistics. You just get the damn games and play. No worries about swapping things on drives or optimizing.
The old Well, that was and that's always where consoles kind of had the advantage, where it was like you knew the games were going to work. You didn't have to update drivers or anything like that. It was a pretty sort of simple process. And if you take that away, it's a lot more annoying. And you're like, well, why am I doing this?
I mean, there's plenty of games for Xbox that do not play on an Xbox. Ark Survival Evolved, for example. Doesn't play.
Is it bad?
I tried to do a gameplay stream once with Zach, and he just never was able to get it to run. Not once. On a 1X.
So on a 1X?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was looking, apparently they have like myriad of issues getting that game.
Or like when
they also terribly optimized for console, but it's on it.
Or when they tried to put Witcher 3 on Switch, like it was just the
tried, yeah.
Yeah, they tried.
The
it's not a good
way
idea.
To play.
It felt like they did it on a dare.
You haven't seen Novigrad until it's made with 6 polygons.
Yeah, hold my beer. Let's.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to another big story of the week. Activision Blizzard had their quarterly earnings report, and this is where they'll typically say some interesting stuff, or sometimes to investors, and they said something extremely troubling, that they believe their future is in mobile and that's where the growth is, and they're going to bring more and more franchises over to mobile. And of course, they've kind of had they put out Call of Duty mobile last year. That's done well, but they've also pissed off a lot of people with like Diablo Immortal, announcing that a couple of years ago. People thought we were going to get a new Diablo game. They were right, but they didn't want it for mobile. It was roundly booed at BlizzCon, leading to the famous "Do you guys not have phones?" response. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, the reality is, their subsidiary King makes, all these crappy mobile games that make a ton of money.
Yes,
and
King.
You just sort of realize, oh, right, they're going to do this because it's going to make them a lot of money, and they don't really care what we think.
Oh, yeah. I think that's something that's easy to forget when we kind of get bought up in loyalty to like fandom or brands or specific game IPs that we like. At the end of the day, the companies that are running shop want to make the most money as possible. And in Activision's case, they've never been shy about that. They've, many, many years of covering games, they've been kind of seen that. I think like Bobby Kotick is like the face of Activision for a long time. Has just been a really fun video game villain, like a game industry villain in some ways. But yeah, I think the idea that when I think about this and I think about like what Activision franchises are left to make mobile games out of and how it would work, they've already got a Call of Duty 1. Diablo's Immortal still isn't done, but it's coming, I guess. So, I mean, what does that mean? Like a different, like Hearthstone, I don't really consider a mobile game, but it works really well on tablets and things and mobile phones. So what else do you all see coming in terms of Activision mobile games?
Am I correct that Call of Duty Mobile is developed by Tencent?
That wouldn't be surprising. They have their hands. Tencent has their hands on a lot of mobile games, like a lot of games that are really big overseas that we probably like aren't familiar in terms of titles.
It was developed by Timmy Studios.
Yeah. So it's so interesting that they have Tencent on Call of Duty and NetEase on Diablo Immortal.
Yeah.
They're just like really just running the gambit of Chinese super corporations.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well, that is it.
That's their ultimate goal. Well, and they mentioned, I think Call of Duty is. I think the mobile Call of Duty is either coming to China or it's already there. I forget. I think it's really close. But then they also mentioned, but we want to get into India, we want to get into Mexico and like all these other markets. So it feels like maybe they feel like they've hit a saturation point in the West and they're just, expanding out.
Yeah. I mean, and there also was a story recently that they're planning to, I think you covered this in a roundup, Brian, that they're staffing up like 2,000 positions for developing positions. I don't know if that's like internal admin stuff or mostly like artists and designers and programmers and that sort of thing, but that's a lot of people. And that would make sense, I guess, if you're going to make like, I don't know, how many games could 2,000 people make in a year or 2 years or 3 years? A lot, especially mobile games. But yeah, I think there's a lot of like money in microtransactions, and that's a double whammy, right? Like if you can get a successful mobile game, that's already a ton of money. But if you can make a successful mobile game that hits in Asia, you're set for multiple lifetimes. Like you
could develop GTA and never sell it.
You've developed a money machine that will just spit money at you forever. Yeah. So it's a bummer. It's a bummer because I don't know, especially like Blizzard, like they haven't made a lot of new stuff lately, and so it's just a bummer to see the parent company like, no, we're gonna make more mobile games. That's what we're doing.
Right. I mean, it's like a Konami with the pachinko machines.
Yes, that's
not
right.
quite
that's
so
exactly,
lame, but like when they're like, actually, we're not going to make a state-of-the-art horror game that's wildly anticipated. We're going to make basically our version of slot machines.
It's a great point. Like these companies that push the medium, like for us, that really like PT really shook things up, and it's affected the way that I think that horror games have been made. From that point on.
Biohazard is like a direct vamp off that, right?
Yeah, totally. And like these huge conglomerates and people that call the shots have control over these like IPs and stuff that like affect our medium and push our medium in that way. That's what's a bummer. Like you're saying with Blizzard, those are the properties, because what are they going to make? Like a Spyro mobile game, which they have the license for, a Crash mobile game? Like that's probably not going to hit, but they're probably, if you do like an Overwatch mobile game or something, an Overwatch gotcha game.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then I don't know what it could be, but I think that's probably where the fear goes, right? Is like, oh no.
I'm sure they've talked about a mobile Overwatch. Yeah.
What's funny is they could already have it made, but after Diablo Immortal, they really have to wait till Overwatch 2 is ready to come out before they can announce the mobile game. They're probably just sitting on it. They're like, would love to start making money on this, but well, actually, you know what? Who am I to say that Blizzard does a smart PR move? Maybe
this would be the
maybe
first.
Not. So, maybe I'm giving them too much credit.
I can't see them getting back on stage to announce a mobile game like in the near future at all. Even if you do the Overwatch 2 and it's like, who's the guy, who's the developer that's going to get up on stage and tell everybody like, oh yeah, did you like that Overwatch 2 trailer? That Overwatch, but we also got another thing for you.
Guess what else? Yeah. Definitely a press release at 2 a.m.
We hear you like mobile games. Well, listen to this.
You know that game you've been looking for?
Yeah, that's it. It's also your mic drop announcement can never be a mobile game ever. I feel like that's what they need to learn. It's not what anybody wants. Even a lot of mobile players, I feel like, shouldn't feel good about themselves.
Wow.
For patronizing this kind of nonsense. But I also think that I don't think it's any coincidence that as the developers have chased mobile more and more, I think we've seen indie devs kind of step into that void. And, I mean, Hades, one of the best games this year, and just these smaller studios that are I think, that are just in it to try to make a good traditional console and PC game, rather than just whatever gotcha
I get
nonsense
what you're saying.
you can crank out.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not all the time. I mean, there's a lot of indie crap out there too, but I think there's been enough, especially over the last just 5 to 7 years.
Hades is so freaking good.
So good.
It is so good. I mean, the tools available to indie developers are just like more comprehensive than they've ever been. So like, you get shit like, I mean, we don't know how it's going to be, but that, is it Bright Memory?
Yeah,
the
Bright Memory.
Xbox game that's one person making it?
Yeah, I think he outsources all like different elements to that. I don't know if he does everything
it's
like
cool, though.
100% on his own, but yeah, regardless, like it's a feat. And it looks
Hollow
cool.
Knight was 3-4 people. Fall Guys was a small studio.
The first
Fall
Shovel
Guys,
Knight
I think, was like
small too.
Yeah,
fairly big as far as indies go.
Okay.
From what I remember.
Gosh, if I was Xbox, I would have
that
hired
Phasmophobia, whatever.
Oh,
Phasmophobia.
And it's funny because that's how games started out being made. I mean, sort of your late 70s, early, it was like one person, just sort of coding, and the tools are a lot more powerful now. But yeah, I think they'll just continue to fill that void as you see just more and more AAA studios just sort of gradually getting more and more into this crap. I mean, just all the sports games. Oh,
the clouds cleared.
Nice. Well, that did get bright.
Yeah, for our podcast listeners, they just got bright in Connor's apartment.
Connor just got a halo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ascended.
It's very exciting. Okay, let's or does anybody else have anything before we go into questions?
I'm ready. Let's do some questions.
Sure. All right.
Yeah, let's answer.
We posted this late, so these are hold on, let me refresh so I can get all
hot off the press.
Yeah, I'm just gonna. We did this last time and I thought it was fun. I just sort of read them all. We just kind of speed went through them. Stephen Allen asks, backwards compatibility mean there's eventually a question. Backwards compatibility means there's no reason to keep an Xbox One or PS4 once you upgrade, and there'll be less demand for resale. Once online support for them ends, too, they're only going to be useful as paperweights. Should Xbox and Sony be the ones to recycle them and not us?
Oh,
interesting.
I love this question, actually.
E-junk is definitely a big issue.
I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective because I'm like, it's nice to have your old consoles. I think that's cool. But I'm looking at a PS2 Slim right now, and I love having it. But also I'm like, e-waste is a serious problem.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would be cool if they had like programs. I know like some retailers like Best Buy has a or at least they used to have a thing where you could like recycle all your old electronics. So I don't know.
My gym
think it's a
had
good
that.
idea. Nice.
Yeah, the rock gym, they just had this big giant cardboard box on a pallet that was like, throw your e-waste out here.
That's cool. Yeah, I always wish that there was some kind of program like that for old consoles. I mean, I don't think I'll be getting rid of any of my old consoles anytime soon, but now it does make more sense than ever. It's just because I traumatized myself, and I think I talked about this last week when I sold my GameCube and my PS2, and I've always regretted it. So I feel like I will at least hold on to them for a while. But yeah, it would be really cool. I like for computers and stuff, like I have a MacBook Pro, and I think there is a trade-in program for Apple stuff to a certain extent, depending on how old it is.
Yeah, I know they have that with phones too.
Yeah, and with phones. So it would be nice if console manufacturers do that. I'd like to see that, and also more distribution from like Microsoft and Sony directly.
Yes, they do make a good point about backwards compatibility though, because it is kind of, if you buy a Series X, your Xbox One, you really don't need that anymore.
You could trade that in more feasibly than a PS4, yeah.
Right, you're not going to lose that much. So I get that.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Claudia asks, what was your favorite game you got on Christmas? Related to that, was it a surprise or did you have to specify what game to get? And then in parenthetical, they say, I always had to tell my parents which one, and later I was the one in charge of buying one for my younger brother, too.
I was in a very similar boat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Growing up.
I think you can shoot yourself in the foot a lot as somebody who likes games and is young, because just based on a box art or like a one sheet in a magazine or something, you'd be like, I really want that, and you get it for Christmas and you like burn through it in 3 hours or something, and just like, oh, this wasn't the game. I think like Spawn, I got Spawn for Super Nintendo, and I was like super into Spawn at the time for some reason, just the comics and like that Todd McFarlane like wild art style. And then it just like, I couldn't beat the first level. I was like, this is really, really hard. Or second level, I think there was like a boss, a Redeemer, I think. And at that age, like I just couldn't figure it out. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I just would play that first level over and over again.
Oh, that's kind of cute in a way.
I did that on Star Wars Shadows of the Empire on N64. I would go through along the whole train, and then I couldn't beat IG-88. And I'd start over. No. I didn't even. You could have told me that was the whole game. I would have been like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but I guess that is the whole game.
It's but like that. This is an obscure reference, but that AVGN episode where I forget what game he's playing, but he's like, I beat the whole game, and then he's like, no, that's just the first guy. That's just the first guy. That's the first boss. I think for Christmas stuff, eventually I stopped asking for games because I just became so aware of the space.
You got more into books,
what I wanted to play, or just like it seemed like a hard thing to put my family through, to be like, hey, give me this one really specific game that I like. Or I would always just ended up started buying it before, like I'd already have the game I wanted. So I usually like, I would put a list of games that like I kind of would be like okay with owning, but not like, wouldn't put all that pressure on like, this is the one I have to have, because I already just bought it, or I just get it.
That's how I am now. Yeah. My mom's like, can I buy you a game? I'm like, you think I'm going to wait? Patty?
I feel like I've always had to take charge and be like, no, this is the one specifically I want. Because, I feel like if you leave it in your parents' hands, that's like giving it to the judges at the end of a fight. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You got to take control. The one I can mainly remember, and I've kind of told the story before, but the Christmas I first got an NES, and of course it came with Super Mario Brothers, but then I took back enough other gifts that I got, like I returned them so I could buy Legend of Zelda, the first one. And dude, that game was so good. Like like it had so many things that just other games did. Like, to save your game was a lovely rarity, and just like getting different swords and armor and just it was so that's awesome. That's like permanently seared in in that impressionable young mind where just never forgot it.
I remember my mom took me to GameStop. We got like one of the Lego games because I'm a little younger, so those like really hit in the prime when I was in like middle school. And we got Lego Indiana Jones. And I was so fucking stoked to get Lego Indiana Jones for the fucking Wii. Holy shit, was I on one. And we're in the driveway. We had just gotten back from GameStop. And my dad pulls up and he's like, hey, what do you guys, you just get home from somewhere? And I'm like, Dad, Mom got me this. And I remember in retrospect looking back what happened. But he put a white bag behind his back and went, oh, that's great.
Oh no.
He had.
Oh no.
He was gonna surprise me with that very game, and
Oh.
he was right to get it. And it was just like I could just see he was so crestfallen.
Crestfallen.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
Yes, just like ruined. And then like I think he mentioned it like later, like days or weeks or hours. I don't know, but I still think about that, and I'm just like, God, I've never seen the wind so fully taken out of somebody's sails. And he was really just like, oh, okay. I feel bad to this day. 13, 14 years later.
That happened to me one time. Kind of a say, like we all went out for ice cream. And then I remember we all got home and we were dropping my dad off. Like the rest of us had to go somewhere else. But I saw my dad like walk to the door and get his key out. And as he was fumbling with his keys, the top of his ice cream just fell onto the sidewalk. No. And I just saw him like drop his head. Like so sad.
That is fundamentally heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was like and now I realize that he probably thought, you get so few joys in life as a dad, and I was going to go home and enjoy this ice cream
while the rest of my family was. Oh my God, your poor dad.
He just kind of looked back at us with just these sad eyes.
Yeah, it feels so sad. Yeah,
the moment you realize your dad feels feelings. Is really tough.
Even as a 9-year-old, I could sort of tell. Like I could feel some empathy.
Well, you could probably relate
no.
better, right? Because if you lost your ice cream at 9,
it would have been like we would have had to go back. Yeah, or something.
Oh yeah, I remember I got a Goofy hat at Disney World with like big ears coming down from the sides, and it was very tall and like foamy, and I lost it. I had just gotten it that day. And I was mortified. I was distraught, and they had to buy me another one.
Yeah.
I mean, of course.
Just get a new one.
Get another one, but it's Disney too, so it was like $40.
Before we move on to the next question, I don't know how I forgot this, but I probably had the best video game Christmas of all time. I did 1 year.
Oh,
yeah, we went on. We had it at my grandparents, my grandma's house, which was like far away from where we lived. It was like, grandma Christmas or whatever. And like a bunch of my cousins were there too, like this huge family Christmas. But we got both Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis on the same day. And my parents also had rented rented Link to the Past and like Super Nintendo games and Sega games. And it was wild. I don't know how I forgot this, but like just that after that, there's just no Christmas birthday present that could ever have
no way.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we had to give our old Nintendo to my cousins. But they got to play it when they were there, but they were going back home. They live up north really far. But like, I was like, oh man, I gotta get my NES. But it's like, oh, you got a Super Nintendo and Sega, so what are you gonna do? Like, just give it.
I like when disenchantment sets in. My cousin got me an N64 for Christmas one year, used. It was like after the GameCube had come out, so it wasn't too expensive. And then like 4 or 5 years later, he was like, hey, do you still have that N64 I gave you? My buddy's looking to buy one. No, it's mine. You gave it to me.
Yeah, it's mine. Right. Yeah. I had it over a year. It's mine.
Yeah, I had it for years.
A
long time. It's just like, oh my God.
My parents never supported my video game habit to that degree, and I think because while they did get me an NES, that was, I think, the last console. They didn't get me a Super Nintendo because it was like all I wanted to play. And I think it sort of annoyed them after a while. And so, they weren't going to like encourage it to that degree. They would reluctantly, get me a game, what I wanted really for funny. Christmas.
I remember. Sorry, go ahead, Connor.
I was just going to say when I moved from Game Boy Color to a Game Boy Advance SP, I got the controller. They took the charger out and I was like, oh, you can play it next to the wall. And then I just drained it that day and didn't know that the lithium battery was rechargeable. So me and my uncle spent the whole day looking for a tiny screwdriver. We took the battery out and we're like, oh, what kind of battery is this? And I asked my mom, I was like, do you have any of these around that I could put into my new Game Boy? And she was like, I've never seen that in my life. That's so really stupid.
Okay, moving on. Old Kev asks, would any of you buy a Switch Pro if it just had 4K support and a slightly better battery life, or would you keep your standard Switch/Switch Lite?
They could do the most minuscule small improvement to like Nintendo hardware and I will just buy it. It's probably just
I would buy it. Yes.
Is he the Lite, right, Brian?
I like the Switch. I got a Lite. It's great. It's my most used thing. It's and again talking about what we were saying earlier, the immediacy. It's just you can just boot everything boots up really quickly and just you're playing almost instantly. It feels like almost a midway point between like playing a game on your phone and a regular console. I guess I just like I've always liked handhelds.
If it's just too similar, then maybe I wouldn't. Like I got through 3DS with my like launch 3DS, I guess. I didn't go to like new 3DS or new 3DS XL or anything, and it was fine. I think with Switch, like I wouldn't have to buy it, but I feel like there's just something about it. Maybe it's like the way the Joy-Cons feel. If it feels like a little more sturdy or something, it wouldn't have to be a lot to improve. But I at the very least, I would really want to buy one. I don't know if I actually would.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I barely play my Switch, and when I do, it's docked with a Pro Controller on a 1080 TV. So no, I will not be upgrading.
Oh, okay.
I'm not a big Switch user. I prefer chess.
Oh, okay. Let's see. This next question, I feel like this is about whether we would buy a next gen. If you guys, Alex Pamal, if you guys and gals didn't work for Inside Gaming, would any of you waited a bit longer for either next gen system, or was it a must buy at launch for you? I would. My plan is
assuming that we all bought one.
Yeah,
that seems like it's phrased like we all.
Yeah, I think they're assuming that we all got one directly from Microsoft and Sony, which we did not. My plan is to wait, but if I'm gonna pull the trigger on one first, it would be the PS5.
I think I would always opt for launch day stuff just because I want to be part of the conversation, at least for whatever work I'm doing. If I'm not working here, I'm going to be trying to work somewhere else in games. So it would behoove me to have access to the newest stuff so that I can talk about it confidently. So that's what it is for me. And, if you hit the gold mine, you work at a place where you can get them for free, or you get an office one at least, and you can talk with other people about it or whatever. I think
would be great.
I don't know when that point in my life hit where I just want to be invested in that way. It wasn't always like that. I think before, when I was younger and had less disposable income, it was harder to make that call. It's like, okay, I'll just wait. I'll pick one, or even wait a couple months and then pick one and then get the other one eventually. But yeah, I'll always pick up launch consoles now.
I'm still fairly skittish about spending. I'll still do it. I buy a lot of shit, especially because I can't leave my apartment. I just bought a VR headset. But even still, I can definitely out of pocket just go get one when they're available. But I'm gonna wait. Yeah, because I'm just I don't know. It's a big decision. So I expect to have a PS5 by February. I'll probably get one early next year. And you know what? Honestly, if there's good inventory and people really like all the games that are out for it, I might get one sooner after launch. I don't know. Oh, okay. I'm kind of just come what may. I don't need it day one. Not that I could get one now, but
that's also part of my fear. It's not as much of having one day one, but how long is it going to be before the inventory is good?
Yeah. It was mid to late 2014, I feel for the PS4 to when Shadow of Mordor came out and GTA 5 launched again on the new consoles.
Right.
I waited a year, I think, at least for the PS4. But by the time I got it, it had Bloodborne and there was a pretty nice selection of stuff out. All right, let's see what else. Hold on, I lost my spot. Alex P, what, if any, genres of games do you think work better on console as opposed to PC? For example, strategy games tend to be a PC thing. I mean, I'm not a huge PC person, but I would think none, because you can plug a controller into a PC.
Yes, this is more of a sword and board versus gamepad situation or whatever. It's keyboard and mouse versus controller.
If you couldn't do a controller in the PC, I would say platformers on consoles, I guess.
Fighters, obviously.
Yeah, right.
But again, you can plug your arcade stick into your PC. It's an interesting question, because I know that there was a time before when controller compatibility wasn't always a given, and then even still now, I feel like it's not always, the controller support isn't always there.
Yeah, so. I mean, Disco Elysium doesn't have controller support, even though it seems super straightforward.
Yeah,
isometric RPG.
Yeah, I mean, it's whereas on the other side of the coin, I mean, PC, the keyboard has a lot of advantages. I mean, just in terms of strategy games, RTSs, MMOs. I mean, the list is kind of long. Stuff that works better. FPSs, obviously.
I just saw a Fortnite Pro the other day tweeting that they are switching to the controller because the movement advantages are better for some reason over keyboard and mouse, which I thought was interesting. I don't know enough about the game and the meta to like definitively say which is better. But
the controller I like for driving games because you have the incremental aspect of the triggers. Like you're not going or not going. I think there's a lot of joysticks and triggers are really like invaluable in so many games, especially because like I do a lot of console capture for work, but also like sometimes I'll just like make videos with game stuff, and like working without joysticks makes game capture look so finicky and just like loose, and not loose, just like, I don't know. I like to have the deft touch of the controller. I like that joystick.
Yeah, I usually if I can use a controller for a game, I will. I still like that feel. And the triggers and the sticks, I feel like it's just kind of hard to replace or replicate that feeling. I am very interested, speaking of the PS5, on what that DualSense controller
That's due.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. But otherwise I feel like, I feel like PC, the vast majority play better on PC.
My wonder is if those triggers will work on PC, because like you should be able to.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know.
Well, I think that's all we got for this week. On that note, I hope y'all have a great week, and I'm sure we will be fielding a ton of questions about the Series X and the PS5 next week. So we got a big week of gaming ahead of us. So we will see you then. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace.
See ya. But for people to be sending death threats and stuff, it's never okay. It's never okay to do that.
Yeah.
Well, let's withhold judgment and see what their points were, and then
they might have. Yeah, maybe they thought about this long and hard.
That's right. It takes a long time to cut out all those individual letters from newspapers and then send them from a post box. So